Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to Interpolation Sounds. This is going to be poem 14 of the 31 of the cluster Goodbye My Fancy. This is really one of the more remarkable notes associated with the poems in Leaves of Grass. You'll notice that we've had several of these in this cluster, Goodbye My Fancy. It's almost as if Whitman wanted to make sure that these poems were understood in their entirety. Now, this is going to be a celebration of General Sheridan. We, of course, out here in Wyoming know about General Sheridan. Of course, one of our towns in this state is named after this Sheridan. And it is a complicated American that obviously we're dealing with General Sheridan. He is going to be the one responsible for what is often referred to as the burning of the Shenandoah Valley, of course. Also, he's a great lover of Yellowstone National Park, and of course he's involved in what has often been referred to as the Indian Wars out here. So this is a complicated American, and one more of these poems that we call celebration poems. Now, our assumption is that you've been with us at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and that you were as well privy to our introductory comments for Goodbye My Fancy. And we just finished with Paris Expo. Now, the notes here that are significant, first of all, the beginning note at the very top, Whitman will say, General Philip Sheridan was buried at the Cathedral, Washington, D.C., August 1888, with all the pomp, music, and ceremonies of the Roman Catholic service. Then there was a note to finish from Camden, New Jersey, August 7th, 1888. Whitman asked the New York Herald to, quote, add his tribute to Sheridan, end quote, and then a second quote, quote, in the grand constellation of 5 or 6 names under Lincoln's presidency that history will bear for ages in her firmament as marking the last life throbs of succession and beaming on its dying gasps, Sheridan's will be bright. One consideration rising out of the now dead soldier's example as it passes my mind is worth taking notice of. If the war had continued any long time, these states, in my opinion, would have shown and proved the most conclusive military talents ever evinced by any nation on earth, and that they possessed a rank and file ahead of all other known in points of quality and limitlessness of number are easily admitted. But we have, too, the eligibility of organizing, handling, and officering equal to the other. These two, with modern arms, transportation, and inventive American genius, would make the United States with eagerness not only able to stand the whole world, but conquer that world united against us. It's quite a remarkable note. And now Norton's will tell us that this was first published in the New York Herald of 12 August 1888 under the title Over and Through the Burial Chant. We also have a note from Whitman that was written with the direction, put this in the day of Sheridan's burial ceremonies. So this is again one of those celebration poems. He believes Sheridan one of the more important figures of the Lincoln presidency. Interpolation, by the way, is only used in this poem. And of course, think about all of the values of the word sounds as it's been used through Leaves of Grass. Over and through the burial chant, we're familiar with his use of the word chant, organ and solemn service, sermon, bending priests. His adjectives are fascinating in this poem. You'll remember from Song of the Open Road 10 that bat-eyed priests line that we messed with. In here it's bending priests. To me come interpolation sounds not in the show, in other words, kind of interrupting the experience. This is from the mind's eye. Plainly to me, crowding up the aisle and from the window. In other words, here he is sitting at the funeral, and yet somehow all of these other kinds of images, and they're going to reference drum taps a lot here now. To me, come interpolation sounds not in the show. Notice again the show, the play, the performance, the drama. Plainly to me, crowding up the aisle and from the window of sudden battle's hurry and harsh noises, war's grim game. You'll remember this use from Song of Myself 4, both in and out of the game, you'll remember. Game to sight and ear in earnest. And now he's going to give you some of these images. The scout called up and forward. The general mounted and his aides around him. The new word, again, the use of the word word in these final poems of Lisa Grass is fascinating. The instantaneous order issue, the rifle crack, notice again all the verbs and the adjectives. The rifle crack, the cannon thud, the rushing forth of men from their tents, the clank of cavalry, the strange celerity of forming ranks. By the way, this is the only time celerity, that is to say that swiftness of motion, only time it gets used in Lisa Grass is here. Celerity of forming ranks, the slender bugle note. We obviously have heard the bugle referenced before. The sound of horses' hooves departing. Saddles, you'll remember this from Cavalry Crossing Ford. Arms and accoutrements, you'll remember this from First Those Songs. It's interesting, notice that is a 3, how he ends this poem with that trinity of saddles, arms, and accoutrements. It is interesting at 2a that what we're going to say about this poem is that not so much about Sheridan, but more about the fact that the war remains central to Whitman's understanding of American democracy and American history. At 2b, I love the power of the adjectives in this poem as well as his verbs, right? Clank, celerity, slender, thud, rushing, these dynamic words. At 3a, well, obviously we can easily associate this with the drum tap poems, and it does take us back to those drum tap poems. Finally, at 3b, do you think that America, like Whitman will argue, is in fact defined by the Civil War? And if not by the Civil War, by what other wars would you argue? And then finally, obviously, we can ask this question with some alacrity. Do you think Sheridan should be respected and celebrated the way that Whitman is celebrating him now? I'll let you think about that. Thank you.